the place to be. Analyze the players and the team. Keep a great company in the stream.
It's a Murali End. Welcome to the show. We're here when you're high. We're here when you're low. Some days you're happy, some days you wanna when happy it's we when man it's them. It's the same place, Murali End. Sri Lankan Cricket we gon' represent. Go tell a friend.
Happy New Year, welcome to Murali End. My name's Mark Machado. I'm joined by my cousin in the US, Dominic Machado, and Sri Lanka's #1 journalist, Estelle Machado. I'm joined, not Estelle Machado, Estelle Bartu Devon. Gosh.
Surprise, plot twist.
No relation to any of us, sorry. I'm in Sri Lanka at the moment, and I've been with a lot of Machados, so I just assuming everyone's related to me these days. I'm in Ella. SD is somewhere just north of Colombo. Dominic is in Boston. We've got a big year ahead of us, though, gang. The Cricket World Cup is just weeks away from starting in Colombo. The road to Ahmedabad. It feels like we've been on this journey for a long, long time. The women have just wrapped up a series against India, and Sanath Jayasuriya is leaving his post soon after the World Cup, immediately afterwards. And on top of all that, the thing I'm most impressed by is that we have an actual schedule of all the games and series that both the men's and the women's team will be playing over the next 12 months. So we've got a lot to do, and I haven't even mentioned that there's a Women's World Cup as well. And on top of all of that, Pakistan have arrived in Colombo today, I think, in Sri Lanka today, for a three-match T20 series, and England are coming in a couple of weeks as well. So it's absolutely jam-packed here at the Murali End. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. We're going to be with you every step of the way. We won't be taking any more weeks off for Christmas and New Year because that's all gone now. And yeah, come and join the party. Tell us what you think. Tell us how you feel about things. Watch these shows, listen to them. They're always available as a podcast soon afterwards. Say always, sometimes I forget. Let's just jump straight into it. Estelle, I'll start with you because I think the real big news is that Sanath will no longer be in situ as head coach of the men's side after the World Cup.
Yeah, that is the massive news coming out of the Sri Lankan camp, isn't it? And according to what I've heard, it's regardless of what happens at the World Cup, he's stepping down. So he's had his time in charge. I can see Dom smiling when I say regardless of the result, because obviously expectations are not that high, right? Going into this tournament, which is different to what we've seen in the last couple of years. We've kind of had a bit of promise going into the last couple of World Cups, whether it was the ODI World Cup or the T20 World Cups. But this time, I think expectations are very low for the team because they haven't been playing well. Apart from a couple of players, nothing much has been clicking for them. But yeah, Sanath's had his time at the top. There has been a lot of criticism about the way he's gone about things, about how, the pitches and, the kind of tactics that Sri Lanka have used. I wonder if looking back at it, people will say that Sri Lanka have moved forward or whether it's kind of taken the team a couple of steps back.
So, Dominic, I've been in Sri Lanka for 3 and a bit weeks now, and obviously everywhere I go, everyone I talk to, I ask them what their thoughts are on the cricket team, even if they swear against cricket and tell me they hate it. I ask them what they think.
They've never watched.
One of the overwhelming things I hear people say, and I wonder if you hear this as well, SD, is that the players have let Sanath down by not putting in performances to win. I think that speaks of 2 things. Where firstly, it's that, we always say in this show, I always say at least, I'm like, Sanath is the soul of Sri Lanka, right? Like he is, particularly, I feel particularly outside Colombo. And admittedly, I do spend a lot of time on the South Coast, so I'm kind of near where he's from, right? But he is almost like got deity-like status in that part of the world, and I feel that there's a lot of people on this island who feel like he can never do any wrong. And I also think it speaks to the fact that maybe the island isn't as in love with this team and this set of players as it potentially should be.
Yeah, I mean, to my mind, what we have seen since 2022 is a team that's looked ready to take the next step and hasn't taken the next step. And we were given all sorts of reasons for it. Some of them, I think, had more validity than others, right? But we struggle when we're trying to score big runs. Our spin bowling attack isn't as incisive as it used to be. But we were told when Sanath began, the reason why we're struggling is we don't know how to win games. And so that has to be priority number one. And the way he approached that was preparing pitches at home that were favorable to the side. And we saw this team win a lot of games. What we've seen over the last 12 months, 6 months in particular, is that we have not been able to reap the benefits of winning. We have not been able to reproduce those victories in conditions that are not like home. The team has not taken a step forward. I think, in fact, the decision that Sanath made, and I think this is the most consequential thing he did in his tenure, was prioritize home conditions and make home conditions as favorable to Sri Lanka as possible to drive up the ODI ranking, to give them confidence, all of that. That has not been repaid because the type of game that is played at home on favorable pitches is fundamentally different than the type of game that has to be played elsewhere around the world. And that's the failure of the Sanath tenure. I don't think it has to do with his coaching in particular, but the strategic vision was wrong and has hurt this team. And that's why we feel so low about them, is that there is no, thing to say, hey, look, we've seen them perform well all across the globe in conditions that are different. We've only seen them perform well at home and then put in some really poor performances away from home. They've lost to Zimbabwe multiple times. They've struggled against Bangladesh. And to me, that's a direct consequence of saying, instead of let's do the hard thing, maybe lose a few games. And I think actually the women's series with India is a good counterpoint to see, like, playing hard teams in hard conditions can lead to benefits. But that's my opinion on it. Maybe I rambled too long, but I think that strategic maneuver was really a significant blunder.
If you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, do leave us a comment and let us know what you think about Sanath leaving after the end of the World Cup. Estelle, do you think part of making because it's unusual in Sri Lankan cricket for anything to be that planned that far ahead, even though the World Cup ends for Sri Lanka probably in Ahmedabad in March. But do you think part of this is to kind of try a motivational tactic, almost not just for the team, but to try and get the island behind this team for, this legendary man's last encounter with the national side?
I don't think it is. I just think it's basically like, he's not had the success that they were expecting, right? Because initially with the pitchers and stuff, the conversation was, okay, we want to get our rankings up so that we qualify directly to World Cups and we don't have those issues anymore, which then that made sense, right? Like on the short term. But there has not been any building from that, right? There hasn't been any success that has come through that. And as Dom said, like, there has not been any growth from that. So I just think that for Sanath Jayasuriya as well, I don't know, what his motivation was wanting to coach Sri Lanka, because he's obviously established and he doesn't need this job, right? And he's never coached at the highest level before. I'm not sure what kind of paper qualifications he has for the job or whatever. So I don't know what his motivation was for getting the job, but he's not somebody who needs this, right, as a career. So if we assume the best intentions, he felt like things were so bad that he wanted to try and see if he can do something to change things, and it has not succeeded. So I think from his point of view, it's just a matter of understanding that things are not working or haven't worked, and stepping aside so that somebody else can take over. From Sri Lanka Cricket's point of view as well, they've given that opportunity, and I think Sanath is probably one of the coaches, at least from the recent past, who has been given that free reign, right? Do what you want, hire the people you want around you, run this thing the way you want. So they probably see it as, they tried something, it didn't work, and they look forward to somebody else taking that position.
There's an interesting comment come in. Harshini has said, it seems Sri Lankan Cricket may be considering foreign coaching expertise for both teams. That's what all the kind of indicators imply, don't they? I feel, as somebody who follows, I suppose, multiple other sports and across the planet, that actually maybe Sri Lanka might be one of the few. The conversation about foreign coaches is almost now, I feel, becoming unique to Sri Lankan cricket. I mean, every other India have won major tournaments with foreign coaches. The English football team has had multiple foreign coaches at this point. Sri Lanka has been successful in the past with foreign coaches. I think that there is a parochial nature to Sri Lankan cricket, and I think there might be some advantage, therefore, in actually having foreign coaches. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Dom.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a number of factors. So one of the things is that a lot of times we don't see what's going on behind the scenes, and I think a foreign coach gets in the way of that in a different way. A lot of very, sort of surprising or political or personal vendettas that might be going on behind the scenes, right? That looks extremely unprofessional to a foreign coach. And a lot of the political power play that's going on looks extremely unprofessional to a foreign coach. And I think for a long time now, Sri Lankan cricket, because it has so much cachet, because it makes so much money, has provided a place for political power plays. And what makes it difficult is that if you have a foreign coach who is not part of that system, who's trying to operate outside of that system, it's a real struggle. And we've seen, and I think this is a big thing, that the most recent generation of players who have coached all over the world and played all over the world are scared to come back and coach Sri Lanka. Right? We had Mahela get involved, but he very much chose his role to not be a coach. And I think when you hear Kumar and Mahela and Malinga talk about, or even Murali talk about decisions that are made in SLC or not wanting to come back, it makes you think these are highly respected players all over the world. Why don't they want to go back? What's going on? And then if you just rewind the clock, we saw those players at odds with the SLC for so many years. So I think part of it is there's a fear to relinquish total control of the organization for organizational good because it still lines the pockets of the people who are in power. Maybe that's overly political, Mark. I know you don't like to get political, but that's kind of my opinion.
When I say I don't like to get political, I mean, I just think it's inappropriate for me, who doesn't live in Sri Lanka, to come and talk about actual Sri Lanka politics. I mean, my whole personality is Sri Lanka cricket, right? So obviously I want to get political about SLC. What I think is quite interesting, though, is over the last kind of 3 or 4 months, we've seen all these appointments. Julian Wood coming in for 12 months. The kind of very specialist spin coach from I'm going to call it an unorthodox background, because he comes in from a kind of academic biodynamics background, which I thought was actually quite innovative for SLC to kind of give bring these types of people into the game. I thought it was brilliant, and it felt like there was kind of long-term planning coming into place. Well, now actually you look across the men's side and you look across the women's side, and they're looking for new head coaches. right? So there's somebody somewhere pulling some strings and saying, right, your job is done. It's really difficult with the way Sri Lanka cricket is run to be able to actually find out who these people are, who's making the decisions, who decides when new coaches need to be brought in, who decides when we need specialist coaches and when we don't. It's a weird. I think that
Right.
but it's definitely like a political thing, right?
Yeah, and even the specialist coaches are conditional. And we
Yeah.
warned about this, right? That they don't know who is going to be there. They don't, and we've heard of another specialist coach appointment just recently. Lasith Malinga is going to be with the squad for the 40 days leading up to the World Cup. And also, I think it speaks to a little bit of the Band-Aid attitude, that, okay, we'll bring in Lasith Malinga for 40 days and he'll fix our bowlers. You've got to be thinking long-term. And watching professional sports, you look at the Aussie cricket teams, right? Like how much building and thought and focus they put in years ahead. The Indian cricket team, and then any other sport. So to me, it's a little bit shocking and surprising or not shocking, but it speaks to sort of a mentality that needs to be revised.
Yeah. Esty, while we're talking about coaches, should we talk about the search for a women's head coach? Because we definitely seen a vacancy come out. I don't know if you've heard anything about people who might be shortlisted, people who might be applying, what they're kind of looking for. I know there's kind of some suggestions again from other journalists that they want a foreign coach. Have you heard of anyone even applying for the gig?
No, I haven't heard much news about what's going on with the application process. But what we do know is that Rumesh Ratnayaka will not continue as coach, right? I think that was reported on Sportstar a couple of days ago. So he, with that series against India, his tenure is done. It'll be interesting to see what kind of coach they go with, because I think if you look at the women's team and you look at who we've seen in this kind of professional era, right? We've seen local coaches, we've seen Hashan, and then you had a few stopgap coaches, then you've had Rumesh, right? What I feel is there's a very a paternal type of figure they're looking at to coach the women's team, which I feel is a bit kind of patronizing, because this is a professional cricket team, right? It's not a bunch of schoolgirls playing. They're professionals, and they deserve to be treated that way. I don't know if players themselves prefer that kind of relationship with the coaches, because you do see them kind of look up to people like Rumesh and even Hashan over the last few years. But I'd be very interested to see who is interested in this job, because Sri Lanka's kind of shown that they can compete against the top countries, but they've lacked that killer kind of that finishing instinct when it comes to big games, right? Like apart from the Asia Cup final or the semis and the final there, they've gone into World Cups with a lot of promise and then not delivered, right? So to me, that suggests very much that there's a mental gap that needs to be filled. And I think Rumesh has done a lot of good work in that sense, in giving that kind of belief, right? I'm sure we will talk about individual performances later in the pod, but if you look, one example is Hasini Pereira. And Hasini Pereira is the player who, 12 months ago, if you had asked us about her, the conversation would have been completely different, right? Completely different. Whatever talent you have, what we always say is that, talent nowadays in cricket, in any professional sport, talent is the baseline. Everybody's talented, right? You don't get to national setups or even under 19 or whatever setups if you're not talented. So talent is the baseline. And everyone used to talk about Hasini Pereira's talent. So I think it's the kind of mentality that Rumesh has given her that has allowed her to kind of kick on. Like in this last series, she has scores of 65, 33, 25, 22, and 20, right? So she's gone from her lowest score in the first game, which was 20, to 65 in the last game, right? So she's gone from strength to strength. And a lot of that has to do, I would say, for that she's worked on the mental side of things and kind of understood what needs to be done from her, and also it's the faith that's shown by the management, right? So Rumesh has done a lot of work in that mental space, and that's something you can say from the way he talks and also from the way players talk about him, right? We've heard Chamari speak plenty of times about the type of environment he's created, where it's a very positive environment, and it's very empowering environment. So I'd be very interested to see, firstly, what Sri Lanka cricket is looking for. We might never know, right? What kind of thing they're looking for, the next step, we don't know. And what type of coaches would be interested, because usually what we see, especially in the women's game, maybe in the last 10 years, is that a lot of coaches who kind of want that on their resume, that they've coached a national team, just apply for women's jobs without really having a vision for what they can do with the team. So I hope that Sri Lanka Cricket has a vision and are looking at candidates based on that, who can help them go towards that end goal, right? Because they've got a World Cup this year, but 2027, Sri Lanka is supposed to host the first Champions Trophy.
Yeah.
And they don't host it if they don't qualify, or at least that was the release originally from the ICC, right? They can't host it if they don't qualify. So they have to be amongst the top 6 teams in the world. So I hope they have a vision on what they want and where they want the team to go, and hire based on that.
This is an interesting comment that's just come in. Pala has said, seems like SLC has mixed up the role of coach versus mentor. I would, if I was in SLC and I was interviewing my shortlist of candidates for either of these two roles, because I think the kind of key thing for me would be, if I was a coach applying for this role, the key thing for me would be is what would they deem success, right? The reality is you're probably left it too late to try and win. Not obviously, Sanath will be in position for this World Cup, but for the women's side, you've left it too late to win the next T20 World Cup. Right? It's just a few months away, and I think they've got two series before that. You need a massive slice of luck for that to happen. And for the men, you've got kind of 18 months now till the next 50 over World Cup when they come into situ. So you're like, right, what do you think what do SLC think is an acceptable level of performance at these tournaments? Because I suspect that they're going in it like full South Asian parents going, right, how do we win this? And that's what might be creating friction, because the coaches are going to say, well, we've got to be realistic here, right? I'm not going to turn around. There's only so much coaches can do.
Right. This kind of, do you feel like this kind of ties in to what we were saying with Sanath, that we want someone who has a 3 to 5 year plan, right? How do you take the talent that exists and grow it? Not just how do you paper over the seeming deficits of the team, right? Because I think one of the things that I've liked about Rumesh's tenure is that he has built them up constructively. Now, we're kind of entering the tougher portion. Like if you're imagining sort of a graph where, Sri Lanka's women's side has improved significantly, right? And now the step is to go from being a good team to a world-class team. That's the hard part. That's the really hard part, because, 3 to 5 year plan to get a team up to speed. Okay, you give players chances, you're consistent, you give them opportunities. And we've seen this with the men's side as well. How do you take that team from being, 6 to 8 in the world to consistently top 5, top 3? And that requires a lot of strategic awareness. It requires a plan. It requires self-belief. So I'm curious, like if I was sitting in the interview room, I'd say, okay, what's your plan to take us from a team that's, solid to a team that's really competing consistently for those semifinal berths at major tournaments?
I'm when Sanath was made head coach, the reason why I didn't think it was that bad an idea was because I thought he's such a big person, such a big character, so well loved within Sri Lanka. I thought he's probably one of the few people who's kind of bigger than SLC. Also, he's unique in that he straddles. It's basically just him and Murali basically kind of straddle two generations, right? So they're both there in '96, and they're both there kind of in not quite, but they play with Mahela and Sangha. So it's like they've got the respect of all the GOATs. So you kind of like think, maybe Sanath might be the guy that can cut through the politics and kind of cut through everything. I kind of feel he might, actually. I think he was potentially, a lot of the problems might have been that he was kind of advised wrong, right? And he didn't think that some of the ideas and some of the things that they did, like I think about Darren Sammy complaining about the pitches, right, in that West Indies series a lot. And actually, that kind of the problem always with Sri Lankan cricket is always win now, when it should always be we're not too concerned about winning now. We want to win now. That is great. But the most important thing, so we win next month, is that we get as close to Ahmedabad as we possibly can. And I think that is the kind of almost cultural difference between Australian cricket and Sri Lankan cricket. And I don't know, changing a coach isn't going to change that attitude, because that attitude is coming from the top. I also think the only people who can win a cricket match or any sports fixture are the actual players. And the further back you get from it, you can only make decisions for the longer term, right? So if you're the chairman of SLC, you can only make decisions for that are going to impact the team and the team's performances in 2 to 3 years. However, the culture is such around our cricket team at the moment that they don't think like that. They think we can make a decision that changes it, which brings me on to the squad for Pakistan, because it is quite dramatic. There's a T20 series, a key part of our warm-up for this World Cup, and there's quite dramatic changes in this squad to what went to Pakistan for the Tri-Series in November. And I just don't know how I feel about them chopping and changing a squad so close to a major tournament, and bringing DDS in, who I think is a great guy, beautiful batsman to watch, incredible. And I've no issues with him personally. Please don't misunderstand me, Dan and Jai, if you listen to this. I just think that they're setting the poor guy up to fail yet again by bringing him in last minute like this. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Estelle.
Yeah, but this is what we have seen right throughout, right? It's like when a tournament nears, you have these big changes. And again, like as you said, no disrespect to Dhananjay Silva, but he seems to be the guy who they pick to be that kind of stopgap player, right? The guy who's going to rescue them. It feels like, to be honest, at the end of the day, what happens is they get closer to the tournament and realize they can't win. I don't think they realize, but they acknowledge that they can't win the tournament. And then it's about having a respectable tournament. So they bring in the players who can give you respectable performances. It's like, and again, like no disrespect to Janit Lianage either. It's like bringing Janit Lianage into the T20 team, right?
Who is still
he's
there,
not going
by
to
the
win games. Yeah, you know he's not going to win you games, or it's unlikely that he's going to win you games. But he's the type of guy who's going to grind in the middle and who's going to make a difference between being bowled out for 120 and batting the 20 overs and reaching 150, right?
And I think the thing that's so crazy is it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what the T20 game is about. The T20 game is about match winners. I was talking to my neighbor who's a huge India cricket fan, and he was talking about Vaibhav Suryavanshi and was saying, he's a match winner. He's not going to give you big scores every game, but once every 5 games, he's going to win you a game. And in Sri Lanka cricket, we've seemingly lost the plot of these match winners. And we think if we fill the lineup, as Estelle said, with respectable players and get to 150, it'll look okay. But that's not how you win games. And I think it also shows an inability to self-assess. So, going into this tournament, what I would say is, hey, we've got a good top 3 who can score runs, and you want to rely on them to be the backbone of your batting lineup. You've got a very talented bowling lineup. how do you maximize that? And their answer to maximizing that is just add more batters who could possibly bat in the top three, whose home is actually in the top three to fill out the rest of the lineup. When we've talked about this number 7 batter, one, rarely gets to bat, and two, if they're batting, it's not a good thing. Usually they're just doing a cleanup. They're just doing a sort of patch-up job. They're not thinking about how do we actually go and win the teams with the talent that they have. And it's frustrating because we really do have 7, 8 players who are really high quality T20 players. And it's just a matter of saying, how do we back those players as much as possible to kind of use their skills to win? Because the last 3 guys in the team aren't going to be making that big of a difference. But how do you actually back them up rather than, sort of try to cover up your sort of sensibilities about what's a good performance or not?
I want to bring up this message that came in. It all comes back to that famous quote from Murali. I assume Lakshman's talking about when he was speaking to Indian podcaster Mr. Alabadia about why Sri Lankan cricket won't reach the heights. And, one of the things Murali talks about is basically about mentality, right? It's about the players almost have to recognise that the coaching setup isn't ever going to be right. There's going to be pressures coming in from all over the place. The politics behind the scenes is always going to be a mess. But the way we have been successful in the past is by having players with that kind of bulletproof mentality. And it feels to me like the only way that we get back to where we think we could be, and that's competing for major trophies, is that 6 or 7 players need to develop that bulletproof mentality. I'd say it's almost there now with Patham, if not there already, right? We saw that in the Asia Cup against India. And it's kind of like who else can kind of step up and play those roles. I feel like we're developing that more with bowlers than we are at the moment, than we are batters at the moment. And I kind of also feel that one of the big mistakes of the kind of Sanath era has been is that he's never got to grips. They've never got on top of who our best bowlers are and when they should be bowling. And it's been we're not being able to lean into our strengths. I don't know if that's almost like a cultural thing, because this is the first time we've ever had this an embarrassment of riches in that department.
This is the thing, Mark, to combine your and Estelle's point, right? Like Asita Fernando was bowling opening overs for us in T20 games, which is just like they want someone who's a good player, who fits the bill, but they aren't thinking what's actually going to win us matches in 12 months' time.
Do we... what we expected to happen in this Pakistan series then? Because I'm kind of trying to do a bit of a kind of preview of it. I mean, I feel like we spent the last half an hour being quite damn beat about Sri Lankan cricket, but I also think there's loads of positives about it at the moment. And I kind of think that actually, if they can get a bit of steam, put some performances in against Pakistan and do the same against England, I think this England side might struggle in Sri Lanka. I think they're quite fragile as well at the moment. Then suddenly they can turn up at this World Cup. It's a home World Cup, get a few wins early on. They're playing Ireland, they're playing Zimbabwe. Yes, they're in the same group as Australia, but we can kind of do something, get a bit of momentum, and then suddenly, this place is going to be absolutely kicking off. Like everyone is going to be behind the boys and expecting them, and maybe that might kind of bring out some performances. What do you think, Estelle?
Yeah, they need that, don't they? Because as I said early in the pod, like, this is one World Cup Sri Lanka is going into that there aren't that many expectations, despite it being a home World Cup, right? It's almost like, even the fans are kind of not that interested anymore because they've seen what's happened in the past couple of tournaments. So these 2 series, so they've got 6 T20s in the next 3 weeks. If they can put some good performances in, and I think, to be honest, even if the results don't come their way, if they can establish those roles and who's going to bat where and who's going to bowl where, at least that's going to hold them in good stead going into the World Cup. Because as you rightly said, like in Sanath's tenure, we've had so many bowling options, but we still haven't really been able to, I don't know if we can say we've played our best 4 or 5 bowlers together and kind of nailed the periods in which they should bowl and all of that, even in like 3 consecutive games, right? I mean, is it Eshan Malinga? Is it Matisha Patirana? Is it Nuwan Tushara? Are you going, do you want Mahesh Dikshana in the side? Manindu is obviously a given, right? Dushmanta Chamira is a given. So, those things, if they can nail down in the next 6 games, at least that's going to give them some confidence going into the World Cup.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I think even as a player, like, again, to kind of go back to someone like Hasini Pereira and even someone like Pathum, right? Or Kusal Mendes. It's the definition of their role that has helped a lot in their performances. They're able to put in those performances because they know what's required of them, right?
Yeah.
It's not ambiguous. It's not them going in not knowing whether they should work the singles or whether they should go pick, right? They've been given specific roles. So if they can kind of work that out for the bowlers, I think that'll give them the players' confidence going into remember, I mean, even the captain has changed, right? So that's also going to be something they have to relearn. I mean, I know Dasun's been captain before, but they've had a period under Charit, and now they've got to go back to kind of learning his style or relearning his style.
Yeah,
the only constant in Sri Lankan cricket is inconsistency, right? In almost everything. Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, I think that role definition speaks to the problems they've had from the 4 to 8 batting spots. Because when you have 7 batters, like, what is the role you're giving the different players? What role is Wanindu Hasaranga playing in that? What role is Kamindu Mendes playing? What are you telling him before the match? This is what we expect of you, right? It's just come in and play the situation. And I'd much rather see them go very bowler heavy, right? Because to me, so say you're considering bringing in DDS at 4 or 5. Why not? What's the difference between DDS and Dunith Walalage? Right? I don't think batting-wise in T20 cricket, I don't think there's that much of a difference. Bowling-wise, I think Dunith gives you a different option. You're likely going to play an off-spinner anyway with Tikshana, and he can bowl at different phases. I'd much rather kind of stack the bowling lineup and maybe even, and sort of stack the all-rounders and give you a top 4 of Pathum, Kamil Mishara, Kusal Mendes, Charath, and then say you've got Walalage, Dawson, and Hasaranga as your 5, 6, 7, and you give them defined roles. This is when you go in. These are who's going to attack whom, and you tell them this is what I'm expecting of you batting wise, right? And then you play 4 bowlers, so you have tons of bowling options, tons of different options that you can use, and you're not like worried about one bowler having a bad day. I think you go very bowling. You go sort of all-rounder heavy and bowling all-rounder heavy, and you say this is our best chance to win. If the pitch is turning, we've got 3 or 4 guys who we can toss the ball to. If it's not, we've got pacers who can do different things. We've got people who can bat. I think it's something where we have to actually put our money into the resources that we have and use it to dominate the opposition by having a strategic advantage when it comes to bowling, rather than saying, hey, we have 4 bowlers and then we're going to just chuck in a 5th bowler somewhere, and that may ruin the whole thing.
Guys, we'll be live after every game of this series. I think I should be. I was about to say, I think I'm flying after one of the games, but I am around. We'll be reacting to it. You guys can come on and we'll do the interactive. You guys come on and tell us what you think about everything. Of course, you can leave your comments now. Hit the subscribe button. Hit that follow. Tell all your friends about the Murali End. We're going to be with you all the way to our Medabad. We will also go into more detail about what that 11 should be for that first World Cup game as we get closer to it. I mean, there's still plenty of time for a captaincy change. There's still plenty of time. Who knows if Sanath will even make it as head coach to that first game of the World Cup. And at some point, Angelo and Chandy will come back into the squad as well. So we're with you for all of that as well. There's a few other bits around this World Cup that I think are kind of Sri Lanka adjacent. Not directly involved with us playing, with us as a playing team, but maybe involved with us as hosting. We'll get to that in a bit. But I want to talk about the India-Sri Lanka series. I wasn't able to catch as much of it as I wanted to, but there was some really, and Sri Lanka did lose the series 5-0, Estelle, but there's some really interesting performances and players in the runs who definitely a year ago, I would not have had them down to be scoring big against big teams, right?
Yeah, the one big positive is obviously Hasini Pereira, right? As I mentioned before, big scores, consistent runs at the top of the order. And the second one is Imesha Dulani, who, we were talking about after that first game. She should be given a chance, given that she's been in the squad consistently, hasn't been given opportunities. Like you, Mark, I wasn't able to catch much of the action, but that last game where Dulani made 50, I was able to, watch a few or part of her innings. And it's mindset, right? I think the difference between her and Vishmi right now is that she came out there like she had nothing to lose. She attacked and she got the runs that Sri Lanka needed. And, if you just look at the 5 games that they've played, as we know, Sri Lanka can't set a target, right?
Yeah.
They can't set. Yeah. And the first 3 games, they batted first. And comfortable wins for India, right? In the last 2 games, they chased, and they came close to chasing 200 plus. In the 4th game, what was it like? Yeah, 221. India for 2, Sri Lanka 191 for 6.
Yeah.
And that's top order got runs there, right?
That's their highest T20 score in any. Yeah.
So Hasini, Chamari, Imesha, and Hashita getting runs, right? Nilakshi getting runs at in the middle order. And the next game, actually, to me, that was the most promising one, because we always talk about, winning without Chamari, right?
Yeah.
And when I put the TV on, or when I check the scores, and Sri Lanka are kind of doing well in that chase of 175. And instinctively, I checked, okay, how much has Chamari got, right? How much is she on? And she got out for single digits, right? And it was Hasini and Imesha who were making the runs. It was Sri Lanka's game to lose, I think, and they blew it. They should have won that. They should have chased 175. I don't think India should have got 175 in the first place. But, the chase, they could have chased down 175. It didn't happen, but those are the little positives you have to take from these kind of series, because as we've mentioned before, like when you play women's championship tournaments, you can't experiment, you can't bring in new players as often as you would like. So you end up playing the same players again and again and again, sometimes to their detriment as well, right? I would 100% say that Vishmi, it was more negative impact on her than a positive one. The fact that they persisted with her over the last year when she was so clearly out of form, right, and struggling to make runs. I think she may have had like one innings in that World Cup where it was rain shortened and she got some runs under her belt, but otherwise she looked very scratchy, right? And that didn't change the more opportunity she was given. So I think it also should give the selectors and the management some faith in who's in the wings. People like Imesha Dulani have been kind of in and around the squad for a while. You had a few bowlers coming in. You didn't have Udeshika or Achini, right? So you got Malki Madara, you got Rashmika coming in. They may not have had like match-winning performances, but these are the kind of matches they need to play so that they're ready when the big opportunities come their way, right? So 5-0, it should have at least been a 4-1 result, but given how things are, I think there are some positives that they can take out from it.
A question's come in that I can answer. Harshini has asked, I don't know what's going wrong with Harshita. It feels like she's trying to be too innovative and losing her natural game. I have heard from an insider that they're trying to get them to find the boundary more. One of the things they've realised, I mean, you don't have to look too hard at a scorecard to figure out that one of the kind of issues is that our strike rate is too low for everyone, basically apart from Chamari, and so because of that, they are trying to get the women's team players to find the boundary. I say women's team. I think they're also trying to get the men's players to do that as well. So I think that's why we might be seeing some kind of changes in some of the ways that some of our more orthodox players are batting. at the moment. I mean, I think it's unbelievable that Sri Lanka scored 160 odd runs against India and Chamari got 2. I mean, it feels so good. Suddenly that there's a bit of competition for places as well, right? And you just think a bit of competition for places, a new head coach. It could be an exciting time. I mean, obviously, I'm overly optimistic.
And there's an NSL coming up as well, T20 league, T20 league for the women. So, they're building the kind of bench strength finally.
Yeah, somebody has said one of the main reasons that final game slipped away from us with the bowling chances in the first innings. Your thoughts? I think there's a bit of growing pains, right, in our bowling. I think that at some point, I mean, half of our bowling attack in the World Cup just gone. In recent years has been well north of 35, right? So those players aren't going to be able to stick about forever, and we've just got to. There's an element, again, part of this is it's not about winning today, it's not about winning tomorrow, it's about winning in England in June, right? That's what we are trying to build towards, right? That's what's always going to be the bigger thing. I think the thing about when you play India is, and I don't think this is even a Sri Lanka thing at the moment, I think this is every other team in the world, it kind of almost feels like a free hit, because you kind of like feel, it doesn't matter what format, what gender, whatever India side you play, it feels like, well, they should naturally win because they're India at the moment.
Right. It's a real measuring stick, right? It teaches you what you need to do to be at the highest level of the game, right? Because India's women's team is playing phenomenal cricket right now. I think, we need to be clear about that this is, that they've been on an amazing, amazing run. And to see the women go out there and adapt, right? Especially when you lose those first couple games that way, to adapt and say, okay, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to play more aggressively. And seeing Hassani do that, right? And then seeing Amesha Dulani, I was so impressed seeing her step down the wicket and play shots. She was looking to attack. She wasn't scared of losing her wicket. She was playing sweep shots. She was playing aggressively. I thought Kavisha did really well as a bowler. I thought she was very impressive as a bowler. Her batting wasn't as good, but seeing Hassani and Amesha Dulani play like that gave me a lot of positives. And I think just the mentality, seeing these women striking at like 120, 130 instead of 80, 90, it just shows a difference in mentality and that they can do it. So like, obviously losing 5-0 can be tough, but if they can take their learnings from like, this is the way the best teams in the world play, and that's where we want to get. Not like we're going to play our own brand of cricket, but like we need to at least step part of the way there. That'll get you, in my mind, pretty far, and maybe be the start of moving from that, 6th, 7th best team in the world to the 4th or the 5th. And also, I was really happy to see the young seamers all get a chance. Malsa Shahani, Kavya Kavindi, Rashmika, and I know I'm missing. And Malki, did I say Malki? Yeah, Malki Madara. So there were 4 young seamers who they rotated, and I thought that was good too, to have all of them get that game experience against a very explosive Indian batting lineup.
Yeah, and they're going to need them in England, right? They're going to need seam bowlers in England. Exactly. They off to the West Indies next in February. I'm a little bit nervous that they're going to the West. Like, they're going to the West Indies, pretty foreign conditions. They're going there while the World Cup's on at home, a men's World Cup's on at home. That game is going to. That series might be a little bit lost, Estelle, but it's vitally important in terms of the road to Lords for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is really important. And again, you're back to that cycle, right? The Women's Championship, and you start again. It's not like, a given that you're going to make the World Cup. We've seen teams like West Indies miss out on ODI World Cup. So it's going to be that grind again over the next couple of years. I think, they can be really competitive against the West Indies. It's not as much as much of a one-sided game as you would think, like maybe an India series would be. But again, it comes down to who the coach is going to be and what kind of performances the players can put in, right? Because it does seem like, Chamari's kind of that golden run is done. Right? Mm-hmm. She was scoring runs every game. Now, it's not that she's, not making runs, but it's not as consistent as it was. So you're going to need other players to step up, and hopefully, that bench strength we were talking about can come through, and there can be some new players coming in and performing for the side.
I'm interested to see how much knowledge whoever comes in to be the next head coach of the Sri Lankan women's side has of actual Sri Lankan women's cricket. How much would they know beyond Charmari, Kavisha, and Harshita, right?
Yep.
What do they know about it? Because I think that's a key. It's the three of us try and do this as close to full time as possible, right? And it's difficult to find information about things, to stay on top of things as well, right? So I have no idea. Again, SLC is such a opaque organisation. We have no idea of who they might be talking to. They might have no idea about shortlist. We have no idea what the interview process or the recruitment process might be. So we have no idea if these questions will even be asked, right? But yeah, again, I think it's exciting times to be a Sri Lankan cricket fan when you look at this squad and the youngsters that are coming through, right? It's not, Chamari's closer to the end of her career than the beginning. And I don't think, I think the end of Chamari's career is basically kind of like the end of the first chapter of the Sri Lankan women's team. And actually, she's leaving behind a great legacy of youngsters coming through, right? There's one question that's just popped up. News spreads that Sri Lanka automatically qualify for Women's Champions Trophy since Sri Lanka is the host. Is that true? That's from Samani again. I heard that as well. I thought that was true, but you don't think that's right, Estelle, right?
Well, originally the release said that Sri Lanka will host if they qualify, which is stupid, because how are you going to change your? I mean, seriously, like you're going to have to change your host if they don't make it to the top 6. So maybe that has been changed unofficially or officially, and we've just not heard about it. But the original release was that Sri Lanka will host if they qualify, if they make it in the top 6.
There's another question come in that maybe Estelle knows the answer to from Harshini. Why are there fewer senior players in the NSL squads? Aren't they in the plans this year? I haven't looked at those squads, so I can't say.
Yeah, I just had a look just now as well. I think if we look at the squad that was picked for this India series as well, there is clearly a kind of a plan to move beyond the seniors, like particularly with bowling. And that is a good thing, because we've seen Sri Lanka kind of averaging, like average age 33 plus or something like that, right? Which is not ideal going forward. So I think it's a good thing that they're giving a lot more youngsters the opportunities. What was most interesting to me is that Chamodi Prabodha has been named one of the captains in the 4 teams. She's 16 years old.
Yeah.
And I hope there's no other player who has the same name. It's very
surprising.
It's interesting to me that she's been picked to captain, and that team is very much under 19 or close to under 19 team, if I'm not mistaken, because they've got like Shashini Gimhani, they've got Rashmika Sewandi, they've got Limansa Tilakaratna, Sanjana Kavindi. So I think that's kind of an age group squad that they've put together, and she's been named captain. Otherwise, Harshita, Vishmi, and Hasini will be captains, and
which makes sense.
They look reasonably, and they look reasonably good squads. I think, in a sense, you also want to give those opportunities to play competitive cricket to kind of those players who are on the fringe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh. Yeah, she will be our new under-19s captain. It's confirmed. So yeah, maybe that is the reason why. It's I'm loving all the comments we're getting on the women's team. Normally, don't get so many comments and questions. So spread the word and tell everyone else that we're here, and hit the subscribe and follow. There's a couple of things I said I was going to bring up after we talked about the women's side. One is that it seems like our old friends, Bangladesh, have decided that they want to play all their World Cup games in Sri Lanka. And I just wanted to kind of get your opinion, panel, on how you feel about this. As you know, as we say frequently on this, or as I say, I don't like to get involved in politics. I don't know I wasn't expecting to talk about India versus the Indian, Pakistan, Bangladesh's political issues, but somehow Sri Lankan cricket has managed to somehow get itself involved in the whole thing. I don't know what your take on this is, Dom. I would like Angelo to
be the peace ambassador.
Yeah, do a little video for Instagram saying that maybe or like we should be the bigger man here and be like, yes, you can play.
I mean, yeah, I think it becomes. It's just. I'm trying to think about how to frame it. I think the ICC has become farcical in the way that it responds to these political issues, and that it's, I think India plays such a big role in world cricket that the ICC, the BCCI are so, hand in glove that it makes these decisions very difficult. And then we end up playing this game of basically chicken, where it's like, okay, is this team going to show up to the tournament, or are they going to organize an alternative venue? And that it consistently keeps on happening at major either regional events like the Asia Cup or international events like the World Cup is ridiculous. And it seems to be too that some of these squads are taking more political standpoints in these matches, right? They view the matches being played as sort of a arm of a tense political situation. So that also is, I'm thinking.
I think in this instance, right, it's kind of the BCB response to
the IPL ban.
Yeah, the IPL ban, right? So you can kind of see how it's kind of escalated,
right? But I think that's the kind of thing, is that it's and this is not to blame any of the countries for their decisions, but India has brought its political stance and its cricket team closer together, I think, over like the last year, 2 years.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone who'd kind of doubt that, right? It's a kind of shame, I suppose, the way it's gone. Trying not to be political.
No, but I think also it's just if we're avoiding the politics of it, it has affected every major world tournament that has been played over the last 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about that the Women's Champions Trophy, and this idea that if Sri Lanka don't finish in the top 6, they'll have to move it. I mean, and Estelle was like, that sounds nuts. And it does sound crazy, but with the way kind of global cricket is going, I mean, absolutely could be possible, right? It just feels like at any given moment, a tournament can move to the UAE, or a tournament can move to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, accidentally ended up hosting the World Cup last year. That this time last year we didn't even know we were going to get, right?
And Sri Lanka has also had a World Cup taken from them, the under-19s.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
So, like, kind of anything can happen in Sri Lankan cricket. Anything can happen in global cricket. It's quite crazy, guys. We leave it there. We've been rabbiting it on for almost an hour. Please do hit the follow, hit the subscribe, hit the likes, tell all your friends about us. Join the WhatsApp channel. We're trying to do everything. I've got an idea for a piece I want to write for the Substack. Eventually, I'll find 5 minutes to be able to do that. So subscribe to that as well. We'll be back after the first game, which is on today is Monday, which is on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Down below, we'll have all the reaction to that. We'll see you all then. Bye.
Murali End, you're in a place to be. Analyze the players and the team. Keep a great company in the stream.
It's a Murali End. Welcome to the show. We're here when you're high. We're here when you're low. Some days you're happy, some days you wanna when happy it's we, when man it's them. It's the same place, Murali End. Sri Lankan Cricket we gon' represent. Go tell a friend.